Hi boys and girls, so today I'm going to show you a quick and simple way to bake fairy cakes. Before we start however, please make sure you wash your hands thoroughly with soap and warm water. This will remove any germs before you start baking. So today we're going to learn how to bake and then decorate 12 fairy cakes. Before we start though, we do need to gather our ingredients and equipment together. So to make the fairy cakes themselves, you will need 110 grams of butter or margarine, which has been softened at room temperature, 110 grams of caster sugar, 110 grams of self-raising flour, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk. For the topping, you can either use icing sugar or frosting. If you're using icing sugar, you will need 300 grams of the icing sugar powder, 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, food colouring and sprinkles. If you decide to use the frosting, which is what Mr. Jackson's used just because I had it in my cupboard, you will need 1 sachet of the mix, 110 millilitres of milk, food colouring and some sprinkles. And with your equipment, you will need a mixing bowl, a mixing spoon, a measuring jug, weighing scales, some teaspoons and tablespoons, cake cases, and fairy or muffin cake tins. You will need 12 of these. Okay, a cake tin with 12 holes. If you only have a cake tin with 6 holes, that is fine. You will just need to bake the first 6 and then you will need to bake another 6 after that. First, preheat your oven to 180 degrees or gas mark 5 if it's a gas oven. You may need an adult to support you with this step. Next, line a fairy cake tin with 12 fairy cake cases. Now place your mixing bowl on top of the weighing scales. Turn them on and set to 0. Make sure you set to 0 after the mixing bowl has been placed on top, so your weighing scales are not weighing the empty bowl. Now slowly pour in 110 grams of caster sugar. Do not remove the bowl after you've added in the sugar because you are going to add in some butter. Next, spoon in 110 grams of butter. When you have added the butter, the scale should show 220 grams. This will be the 110 grams of sugar that you have just added, together with the 110 grams of butter. Now mix the sugar and butter together until it becomes a creamy consistency. Next, crack the 2 eggs into the mixture. Combine together using the spoon until the mixture becomes smooth. Next, a drop at a time, add in a teaspoon of the vanilla extract and combine. Now you will need to place the mixture back on top of the weighing scales. Turn them on and set to 0. Make sure the scales are set to 0 after you have placed the mixing bowl on top. Next, weigh out 110 grams of self-raising flour by slowly pouring it into the mixing bowl. I emphasise slowly just because you don't want the flour to go all over the place. When you have added enough flour, the scale should show 110 grams. Now, slowly combine the flour with the rest of the mixture until it becomes smooth. When you first start to mix the flour together, I would do that very, very slowly, otherwise the flour will come out of the bowl. Now, gradually add 1 to 2 teaspoons of milk to your mixture. Be careful you don't add too much and add it all at the same time because it may make the mixture runny. Use your judgment. The mixture should be smooth but thick at the same time. So when Mr. Jackson was making his, I added roughly 1.5 teaspoons. I didn't need both teaspoons because it would have become too runny. Your mixture is now ready to be placed into the cake cases. Using a tablespoon, scoop up some of the mixture from the bowl. Then carefully place over the cake case and use a teaspoon to scrape it off. Only fill the cases halfway, otherwise they will spill over when they are in the oven. Finally, carefully place the cakes into the middle of the oven and bake for 8 to 12 minutes. You may want to put some oven mitts on when you're placing the cakes into the oven. Set a timer and check after 8 minutes. Depending on your oven, they may need longer to bake. So Mr. Jackson's did really need the full 12 minutes. Bake until the cakes are golden brown. But some advice, don't keep opening the oven. If you let oxygen into the oven, and if the oxygen gets to the cakes, this will stop them from rising. So just keep looking through the oven if you need to check on them regularly. Whilst the cakes are baking, you can then prepare the icing sugar or frosting mixture. So gather your ingredients together. So if you're using frosting, first open the sachet and pour the mixture into the mixing bowl. Then add in 115 millilitres of milk and whisk together vigorously until the mixture becomes thick and smooth. So vigorously means at a fast pace and with lots of energy so that it becomes thick. If you want to change the colour of your frosting or icing sugar, you can add in 2 to 3 teaspoons of food colouring and mix together. Now, if you're using icing sugar instead, weigh out 300 grams of icing sugar into a bowl using your weighing scales, and then add in 2 to 3 teaspoons of water and mix together until it's smooth but not runny, so it should be quite thick. Then you can add your 2 to 3 teaspoons of food colouring in afterwards. When your fairy cakes are golden brown, use an oven mitt to carefully remove them from the oven. Leave them to cool for 15 minutes. If you place the icing sugar or the frosting on the cake when it's still warm, the mixture will just become runny. So just have some patience and then make sure they're cool. Next, using a teaspoon, carefully place some of the mixture on top of the fairy cakes. So this is when the fairy cakes have cooled down. As you can see, I've chosen to create 3 fairy cakes with white frosting, and then I added the food colouring afterwards, and I've created 3 fairy cakes with pink frosting. And then finally, you can add some sprinkles to the top of your cakes, leave to set, and then enjoy. You will probably need to leave them to set for 1 to 2 hours so that the icing sugar or the frosting can harden. I hope you've enjoyed. Take some pictures and send them to your teacher, and let me know how they taste. Good luck, everyone.